Hi guys, it is Niall and Thomas back again with another episode of the Niall Eurovision podcast. Whew, it's been a week and a bit since we did the ESC battles and they were very, very hotly contended. But we do have a winner. So, Thomas, can I get a drum roll? Euphoria! Hardly surprising to anyone. Euphoria has won. Of course, that means Thomas won, but Thomas won every single vote, so of course he did. But yeah, it wasn't too close actually in the end. So let's just take a look at the combined voting from YouTube, Spotify, and Twitter. Not that any of you used the Spotify vote feature, which took me ages to figure out how to get to work. Love, Love, Peace, Peace, and Slow Mo both got 6 votes. Rise Like a Phoenix got 11 votes, but with 16 votes, that's 41% of the votes. It was Loreen and Euphoria. So Loreen will move on to the next stage of the battles whenever we decide what that next stage is. We are going to have some more battles in the future. We've had a few discussions about some themes that we could do. So if you've got any ideas of themes of songs you would like us to put together, whether it's obscure or normal or whatever, just let us know. Type in the comments below, like and subscribe, all that jazz. Let's do that up front while you're all still watching.
Yeah.
Thomas, how have you been?
Good. Yeah. It's been a pretty boring week for me, actually. I just told you, right? It's been raining the whole week, so I haven't had nothing to do except just go home, cook dinner, eat, and just sit in the sofa, watch TV.
See, the only difference in my week is that you've been able to go home. I've been stuck in my home. We had no episode last weekend because yours truly got COVID in the middle of summer 2024. It's not even cool anymore. But yeah, my test came up, lit up like a Christmas tree.
Are you guys still forced to do tests whenever you're sick, or did you just decide to do a test?
I just decided to because I was just like, this doesn't feel right. And lo and behold, COVID. It's just fun. I had a fever. It was great. I could hardly talk. I still can't laugh too well. So if you hear me get a little bit breathless because Thomas tells a joke, it's because of that. I don't know if that classifies as long COVID, but it's something.
I think something longer than that.
Oh my God, even your laugh just made me go, oh, this could be a very coffee episode of the podcast. But Thomas has came up with the idea of today's discussion. So let's let him speak for a little bit.
Yeah, I've kind of come up with this idea a while ago. This is something that we've decided to talk about a few months ago, even. But we decided to wait until after Eurovision so that we could sort of like add the conversation of this year's results. And the thing that I wanted to discuss for a long time is the whole televote versus jury point system that we have right now in Eurovision. It's a pretty controversial one, depending on who you ask, I suppose. If your personal winner wins or does really well, then you won't think it's controversial. If your winner does really bad, then you might think it is controversial. But it is something that we've all been talking about for a couple of years now. It's something that's really been a hot topic within the fandom, especially online. People always whine about the results. So I thought it'd be fun to just sort of like analyze the results, not just from this year, but from like past years, and see, are there any flaws in the current voting system? We have changed voting systems a couple of times over the years. Do we think that we need to change it again? We're going to have the whole discussion about, do we think juries should go? Do we think juries should stay? Do they need less power, more power? Stuff like that. So I think this could be like a fun conversation, and I'm interested to see your points of view on this as well.
Yeah, I think we've not really discussed it at length
No.
previously, this topic. I think even you wanted to talk about this before we even started the podcast. I think you wanted to do this on the blog.
Yeah.
Which, if you do check out niallpoints.com, there is a new blog from Tomas up there. It's very good. Do give it a read. Who knows, if you've got insomnia, you can read it and it'll maybe help you sleep.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was mean. But yeah, I'm kind of interested to start, if you don't mind,
Sure,
with Norway. Now, the reason I'm interested to start with Norway is the fact that they got so few points, and in fact, they only got televote points from two countries, that's Finland and Ukraine. One from Finland, 3 from Ukraine. And that just seems wild to me. But also the interesting thing with Norway is they tried to change their voting system. Or in fact, not only did they try to change, their proponents were changing the voting system, and they have changed it at their national final Melody Grand Prix. And that changes what led Gulte into Eurovision in the first place, because if they had kept the 50-50 jury televote split, it would have been Kaino with Dan Digida, which is interesting because you then need to think what would have happened. You know, so I think Norway's an interesting place to start for 2024 in terms of this conversation.
I think the thing is we've briefly discussed this before. Like, what do we think would have happened with Kaino had they gone to Eurovision? I think with the old system they would have won with about like a 1 point margin. It would have been a very small margin, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sort of.
I think. Yeah, it was a small margin. I can't remember how much, but there was.
Yeah, maybe not 1 point, but very few points. But I don't think they would have won, because I do think that Goethe did win the televote, I think.
Yes.
So no matter the percentage, how much percentage of the televote counted, it doesn't really matter, but they did win the televote. But Kaino would have gone to Eurovision. I'm not sure if Kaino would have done much better, seeing as we did have a very strong field this year. It was a very, very strong lineup. My personal thought is that Kaino would have probably gotten a more decent televote score, because I feel like the song was more accessible. It was a very poppy dance track, very typical Kaino, and yet very outside of the box for them. It was kind of like, for me,
you had to bring up the box, didn't you?
But I feel like that's also something that people talked about a lot, like, oh, this is so different for Kaino, we don't like this. A lot of people didn't like the song in the beginning. I thought that this was very much Kaino. I thought this was like, when I heard that sound, or maybe it's just Alexandra's voice, that sort of made me go like, that's Kaino. It's just obviously Kaino, but it was different to what they usually do. But I still think it was a very solid pop song, very danceable, very memorable, catchy, easy. I don't think it would have done very well with the juries. They didn't do well with the juries in 2019, but then they did win the televote massively. I don't think this would have won the televote, but I think it could have gotten maybe around, 40, 50 points at least. Maybe just because of their popularity, because people do really love Kaino.
We have to remember as well that in 2019 there was an issue during their jury performance, which could also be the reason for their low score there. But do we think a little bit that Norway were hoisted by their own petard in changing that? Would they have done better? Would they have qualified still with Kaino? I think yes. And would they have done better? I think they would have got more points. I think even some jury points they maybe would have got more. There was only points from 5 juries. And they're all sort of on the low end. Albania 6 being the highest points to be awarded.
And also,
It's-
you got to remember that back in 2019, they didn't have a lot of staging. Kind of,
Oh.
It was a very, very, very simple staging. They were basically just standing there.
Lots of fire.
Yeah, I think they went to the satellite stage and then went back, but that was pretty much it. Whereas now, at least at MGP, they did have a bigger staging with the box and stuff like that. So I think that's something that could have been appreciated. Although Gotha had really great staging as well.
Yeah. What do we think put? So I thought the jury would go for this.
Yeah.
I did not know if the public would get it, and it's obviously turned out to be the case that the public have not. Some things I've seen on Twitter is that was a lot of like screaming or shouting, just because it wasn't necessarily, people didn't necessarily view it as singing, which I think is wrong. You think is correct, but
I wouldn't say it was screaming. It was just sort of like how can I explain that? Sometimes I struggle finding the words in English. I can say them in Dutch immediately, but it's sort of like a shout, like a sort of like a native thing, like I'm this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, but it makes me think about Tarzan doing his little do you know what I mean? It's like something, I don't know. It didn't sound like actual singing to me. I know that it is, and this is gonna get me a bit of hate from Norwegian fans maybe. I know that it obviously is singing, and we have said a couple times that her vocal was insanely good. We've seen them at Amsterdam. Their vocal was probably the best of the night. But I do get where people come from when they say like it sounded a bit like screams. Also maybe the fact that it was in Norwegian, very high pitched. It was sort of difficult for me to make out words to understand what she was singing about. And I speak Swedish, so I should be able to understand the Norwegian lyrics, and I could understand most of it when I read it. But when she sang it, I couldn't make out the words. So I think maybe that's where that comes from. But still, that was sort of wild that they did so poorly with both. Like you said, the televote, you can kind of see how that happened. People didn't really connect with it, but I really did think that the juries would appreciate the vocal and appreciate the staging that they had.
So that was a shock to me, but I do think it's quite interesting that this is the country that have always wanted the split to sort of be changed, and
but then
now they've got more jury points this year than they did public points.
But then this is a tricky one to say a lot about in this conversation, I think, because they did poorly with jury and televote. It'd be different. Like Kino is a much better example to discuss here, actually, because they did win the televote in 2019 and then flopped massively with the juries. I know that there was a bit of an issue during the jury performance, but still, that song and that it's just the difference between jury and televote that is so massive. And we've had a couple of examples like that. One that springs to mind as well is I don't know if you remember this. In 2017, the Polish entry. I think his name was Michał Szpak or something. Let me check. Color of Your Life, I think, was the title of the song, which I thought was a very beautiful song. He came fourth in the televote. And let me see if I can scroll back here. By the way, thank you, EurovisionWorld.com, for giving us these detailed results of, just as I'm going to 2017, it starts lagging. Here we are. Let's see. This is the final. Was it not 2017? No, it wasn't 2017. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
It wasn't 2017.
I'll just have another drink. Well,
yeah, I think it might have been 2016. It was 2016.
You're meant to be our encyclopedia.
So in 2016, Poland comes third even with a televote, but with the juries, they came 25th. second to last in the final. In the jury, they got 2 points from Azerbaijan, 3 points from Lithuania, 1 point from Montenegro, 1 point from Norway. And then for the public, they got 222 points. In 2016, that is, so they beat Australia, who only came fourth. They beat Bulgaria, who came fifth with a televote. They beat Sweden, Armenia. They beat France, which was one of the huge favorites that year. So they were only surpassed by Ukraine and Russia. That to me is another great example of how big the difference is sometimes between jury and televote. And that's the conversation that I want to have. It's like, do we think that this is a fair voting system? Is it logical that millions of people voting across Europe and beyond have the same amount of power as a 5-headed jury in each country?
Professionals.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, put that I'm going to put that aside, whether they're professionals or not. But it's if we do a quick calculation, if we say that on average 40 countries are voting, I don't know why I'm taking the calculator. That's 200 people having the same power as how many millions of people that vote throughout Europe. That sort of doesn't sound very logical to me. I know that they're there for a reason. They're there to make sure that smaller countries or smaller songs that might be overlooked by the televote, that they have a chance at qualifying and doing better. Well, not anymore. Obviously, they're out now, but they used to be in the semis as well. That's why they were there, to sort of like make sure that these sort of songs, like especially I think ballads, a lot of ballads would probably miss out on a spot in the final if we didn't have juries. I think, as we have seen in the last 2 years. But then it's like you see songs that flop with televote coming top with the juries, and it's kind of like, okay, so what is the point of having these juries here if so few people affect the result so much? Whereas we're the ones that are voting, we're the ones that are paying to vote, we're the ones that follow the national selections from the very beginning, and who get invested in some of these songs, who become fan favorites, and then sort of like fail in the final because they get a very low jury score. It just doesn't make sense to me always.
So I understand that. I fully do. So my thinking is to I think keeping the juries makes sense to me. I think I also want to just make a quick point before we go any further. Nothing of what we're saying here is to try and discredit anyone's wins at any point. Everyone who has won or lost or whatever has signed up to the rules as they were for that edition. They knew what they were up against. They knew that it was going to be a 50-50 jury public vote. So none of this discussion is to discredit any wins or put anyone down or say this person should have won. We're not Twitter, but I think there is potentially room to adapt the way the public vote works, and I don't quite know how it would work in practice, but thing for me is the public vote is basically first past the post. It's basically that type of election system where it's the country with the most votes gets this. You can't vote against the country. You can't really vote second place. You just sort of get here's a vote, here's a vote, here's a vote, and you only get 20, and you do have to pay for them. So first of all, payment. Get rid of that. Don't care about that. Don't want it. I know there's logistical reasons, but even some of the countries where it's like €1, it's only 15p a vote here in the UK. Like, the cost should be kept to literally operational, if that. It shouldn't be about recouping money. It should just literally be about how much does it actually cost to process that. As I say, keep costs operational only. It should literally be to process the cost of that vote. It shouldn't be about recouping costs of Eurovision in total. Again, in practice, doesn't really work very well. But I keep thinking about how people vote in Junior Eurovision Song Contest, and that is online and it's free, because it's kiddie winkles and all the rest of it. And I believe you vote for your 3 favorite songs.
Yeah.
And you only vote once.
Yeah.
And I sort of like that idea more because it sort of gives you a chance to, almost the way the juries are doing. The juries are ranking. The juries are ranking, and then overall it's averaged, etc. Whereas the public is just it doesn't feel the same as a genuine ranking based on where we like it. So if you get a chance to give everyone a first, second, third, or even up to 5 places or something like that for an online vote system or whatever, it feels maybe like you're giving more countries a chance. I don't like the fact that you can clearly take advantage of a televote to do 20 votes for your favourite country if you've got the money. I don't like that either. I always like the idea of splitting votes. You won't necessarily vote for 20 different countries, but you can maybe do 5 votes for one country and then 5 for another, and so on. But I do think the jury have a place, but I think that is potentially with an adapted public vote.
Yeah.
And they'll look at how that could work, being given more power to individual public voters rather than en masse public voters. And I think we can see that in a lot of the votes from this year. We obviously know that there was a huge movement to vote for Israel across the continent. Whether or not you were voting for because you like the song or not, that's fine. I won't argue with you, whatever. But there was a concerted effort. I don't think anyone can argue otherwise. 12 points from the rest of the world vote, 12 points from San Marino, Sweden, and Portugal. That to me, anyway, wasn't a song that was going to get. If that song was any other country, any other year, it wouldn't, to me, get those 12 points from that many countries. Televote. To me, this is where you can sort of show you can game the system a little bit as it is. So this is where I feel like maybe a ranking system, on the Junior Eurovision, I think you need to, in the UK anyway, you need to log into your BBC account to be able to vote, and you'll only get that one vote because it's registered to your account. Maybe something like that is a better way to go. You rank your 3.
I mean, they have the app anyway. They have the Eurovision app where you can now, since a couple of years, make your top 10. You can make like a top 10 ranking. It would be an idea maybe to say maybe we don't have to make a top 10, but like a top 3, like you said, or a top 5. Just put that available in the app. Let people choose their top 5 and vote like that. And they can sort of calculate the votes per country that way. Because then you do have a more fair system, like you said, where you have both jury and televote giving a full, or at least giving a part of a ranking instead of, like you said, just voting 20 times for one country because you do have the money and because you're that invested in that one song that you really want it to win. We had situations this year where people voted even up to 60 times for Israel just by having different credit cards, and just thought, oh, I've reached my limit. Let me just grab another credit card and vote 20 times more. We had people, this is obviously another conversation, but we had people who were so adamant on making Israel win to make a statement that they would actually go out of their way to vote 60 times. People who usually don't even watch Eurovision, who were just like, you know what?
People who weren't watching Eurovision, we know anecdotally that people were watching and they were voting because there was one person running that chat or whatever that was saying, vote now, this is the number, go, 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 you know.
Even had politicians in different countries butting in and being like, I'm going to vote 60 times for Israel. And but like I said, that's a different conversation, of course. This was a very unique situation with Israel.
But it is something that could be done. Arguably,
to change it.
Would it be done to this? Would it be done to this level? No, but it is something that can be done, and I do think that there is something to say about still having a jury, but still having public vote, but public vote that seems more fleshed out, maybe a little way. It's not just like honestly, I'm just going proportional representation. You know, it's a little bit more of that sort of like, right, how do we make it fairer to the countries that we do like, but we're just maybe not our first pick?
Yeah.
How do we then help get them points as well? So
exactly.
Without having to think tactically, I don't want anyone to watch at home thinking, right, if I want, realistically, my favourite's not going to win, but if I give them 10 votes, and that takes the fun out of it. Like, I just want to be like, right, here's my favourites. And honestly, to a certain degree, this is one of the things that those Eurovision Place, the Euro scoreboard is really good at, because it allows you it does that sort of ranking, gives the 12, 10, 8, for everyone. And then you see that, and it is more interesting. I wish there was a way we could do that just all the time.
I mean, they could sort of like make other changes. This is actually a question that I asked on Twitter a while ago. I think shortly after the final. This is the tweet that I sent out. I said, in light of the massive televote score for Israel, do we feel like there should be a lower vote limit per person? Is 20 votes per person too much? Would it be less easy to manipulate the result if people only got 1 to 5 votes each? Or, sorry, that's Billy again. I don't know what his problem is. He's looking at me. He's basically just annoyed that he's over there. And he's 12 years old, so he can't get out of the couch by himself. But if I don't put him in there, he just starts tiptoeing, and then it's just constantly like, it's very annoying. Anyway, that's the question that I asked. I did not expect this one to blow up, but I did get a lot of feedback on that question. And
did they get as much feedback as some of your photos?
No. So let me just quickly go through a couple of the answers. Robert said, honestly, 1 vote, only your biggest favorite. That also seems like a fair thing. Just you get the 1 vote. I had this discussion with someone when I was asking that question. I had this discussion with someone when I said, like, they still want to make a profit out of this. They use this money to, fund the contest. Whatever it is that they fund with it, I don't know, but they use that money to fund it. And someone said, but they're a non-profitable organization. And I'm like, really? Like, if it really was non-profitable, they would just say, you've got the app, vote for free. But they don't. They accept your money.
I think it's up to the broadcasters how much it's charged.
Yeah. But even still, it's profit. The profits are important. That's obviously why they allow you to vote so many times. Our friend Dude said 100% yes, 5 votes so people can vote for more than one act. I think for me, the biggest change that they could make is make sure that maybe you can vote 20 times. Maybe they don't actually need to lower the amount of times that you can vote, but I do think that they should lower the amount of times that you can vote for one country. I think they should just say, you know what, you can vote up to 10 times, but only for 10 different countries. You cannot vote twice for the same country. That's something that they could easily, if they say, vote through the app, or even if you vote through text, just you vote a number, and if you try and vote that number a second time, you get, it doesn't go through. I think that's something that they could easily change. Through the app is, of course, the easiest. You just pick 10 songs. You don't even have to put a ranking in. You can just sort of like say, these are my 10 favorites. If you only want to do 5, then you only do 5, and you just let people pick whatever they want. And then you would not have a situation in which someone, for whatever reason, votes 20 or 40 or 60 times, or even more in some cases, for one country just to make a statement, which is obviously what happened this year. And it's funny I just want to point this out. It's funny to me that with all that and all that propaganda that they did, they still did not manage to win the televote. That was such a big moment to me when Croatia got their televote, and I was like, they beat them. Yeah. I did not expect that. When Israel's vote came in, I was like, oh, that's it. They've won the televote. Maybe they won't win the contest, but they've won the televote. And then Croatia comes, and then it was just by a small margin, but they won the televote. That sort of made me happy.
Yeah.
But imagine where all of those points could have gone to. We could have gotten a bigger vote for Bambi. We could have gotten a bigger vote maybe we could have gotten 5 pity points for the UK. I don't know.
Maybe more than 5 points.
Yeah.
Maybe 2. Maybe 6. Maybe 6. No, I do think that there's some reform needed to the public vote, but there is also some argument against how do you keep the jury vote intact, and this is where I sort of not sure. I do. The status quo of it being 50-50 does give a lot more drama in terms of the voting sequence. I'm not good at maths anyway, so I can't count along with what's going on, and that would ruin the mood for me anyway. So I do like that sort of aspect, knowing it's 50-50. There's still, if someone's skyrocketing in the lead, there's still as much chance of them getting the points or they need or whatever.
Let me ask you a question. Maybe, are you a fan of the current system where they announce the jury votes first and then add the televotes at the end? Because you could, if you do change the proportions, if, for example, you would say, let's do 60-40, we do 60 televote, 40 jury vote. Obviously, if you want to present the jury votes first, that would cause a problem, because you'd have less points to give out, I think, because you wouldn't be giving the 1 to 8, 10, and 12. Because what do you do with the televote then to make sure that they have 60%?
Yeah, but they'd have that figured out.
But it would be a weird, because then they would maybe say like, oh, let's do 1 to 8 for the jury, which is weird because we've been used to the system from 1 to 8, 10, and 12 for all these years. I don't think that would be a good idea. I think if they change the proportions, they could consider going back to the voting segment where they just announce the combined results of the jury and televote, which they did from 2009 until I think 2015 was the last time they did that. I think 2016 was the first time they split it completely.
I think you're right.
Yeah, but and then you would have combined votes.
I don't want to know who's won halfway through the voting. I love the tension of the last possible moment.
But then at the same time, if you look back at the last couple of years, let's just put 2016 to now aside. If you look at 2003, which was I think the first time where we really had I think 2003 was full televote. Like, when did we have? I think 2009 is where the juries came in, all the way up till 2015. That's when we had the combined result. How many times in those years did you know halfway through the voting who the winner was? Except maybe Loreen and Alexander Rybak. I think all of those other times.
No, but they announced the winner.
But they don't have to do that. They don't have to do that. That's just a decision that they made to announce the winner with 5 countries left. But your voting was very tight.
You're forgetting that I'm a bit of a newbie relative newbie, so I didn't watch those live.
Well, they did that in 2014. I think that was the first time. I don't know if Petra did it in 2013.
Petra's just changed.
Sorry?
Petra announced the winner halfway through the voting.
In 2013?
Yep.
Okay.
Because her dress changed.
Also, let's not pretend like it was halfway through the voting. It wasn't. But both occasions that they did that, they did it with like 5 or 6 countries left to vote out of 40 something. So that's not halfway through the voting. But they don't have to do that. I, for one, at the time where, let's take Conchita was one of the one that was the year that sort of like ruined it the most for me when they announced Conchita as the winner before. But up to the point where they announced and said no one can catch Conchita anymore, she won, I had no clue. I was not thinking about, how many points are left and how many, I wasn't doing those calculations. If you want to do those calculations, then you'll do the calculations with any voting system. If you want, you can now find out who the winner is 3 countries before the end of the voting. You can, because you can sort of like calculate, there's this many points left. There's no way this country is getting that or that. You can always know. So those diehard people who want to calculate it will do it no matter what. I think most people don't do that and actually wait until the end to see who wins. And I had no clue that Conchita had won until the moment they actually said it. So for me, that doesn't really ruin it. I think we've had very tight and very exciting votings in the past. Even before the juries came in, because they had the same voting system anyway. They just had, it wasn't a combined result. It was just televote. But still, there were so many years where it was exciting until the very last country. So for me, I wouldn't mind them going back to that system, honestly. If that sort of makes for them being able to change the proportions, because I do feel like the jury needs to change in some way. I feel like either we need to make sure that they have less power, or we need to make sure that we have more people in these juries. One or the other.
I don't hate the idea of, bear with me, what they do at Benidorm Fest. It's a waste of time and it doesn't do anything. But they've got, it's 25% jury, 25% demoscopic jury, and then the televote for the rest of it. And I feel like that might be interesting because your second jury, your demoscopic jury, is normal people. I don't think it needs to necessarily be music professionals. It'd be maybe like almost like a focus group of who likes which songs. I don't know.
But then what is the difference between the demoscopic jury and the televote?
Because it's more condensed and it's not as susceptible to.
So does that change? Will that solve the issue where people are like, the jury vote had too much power? Because it still means if you do a demoscopic jury, that's still just a handful of people.
Babe, as well as I do, nothing's going to shut people up.
No.
You can do anything.
No, but I think that if they do come up with something to change it, then I don't think that would be the way to go. I think that works maybe for Benidorm Fest, because there's a lot of countries. I think especially the Scandies used to do that for a while, where and some of them still do, where you had a national jury and an international jury combined. I like that idea, but that only works for me in national selections, because what is a demoscopic jury? If you're voting internationally, what's a demoscopic jury? It means nothing. You might as well just add those demoscopic juries to the televote. I think the easiest thing to do is just get more people in those juries, and maybe be a bit more selective about who gets into these juries. I saw that for this is not me throwing shade at this person, but I think Ralph Mackenbach, who won the Junior Eurovision for the Netherlands, was in the jury this year, or was it last year for the Netherlands? And I'm like, really? Like, it's just I feel like they're sort of like accepting anyone.
Do you feel like it becomes sort of like a fan contest jury?
It's kind of like, and sometimes when I look at I obviously don't know the people who are in the RTBF jury, because weirdly we don't really know many people, famous people from the south of the country. They don't know a lot of our famous people either. But when I look at the jury sometimes for VRT, for the Flemish broadcasters, sometimes I'm like, really, that guy? Sometimes they're like 65, 70 years old. I'm not being ageist, but you have a contest that's sort of like trying to attract younger generations. A lot of younger generations watch the contest now, and then you have a bunch of 70-year-olds deciding half of the vote for your country. And I'm like one of these people on the last time that was on the jury was on Radio 1, which is like classical music. And I'm like, how is this person, like, if you're going to get someone from the radio, at least do it from someone from the popular radio, like, that's into like modern day music. Like, it just does. Sometimes I'm like, do you guys even bother looking for people that matter? Like, at least pick people that have like at least a current taste in music. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense, or am I being?
No, I do. I just find it very enjoyable when you have a bee in your bonnet about something. It's really fun to me. Have you got any further thoughts? Because I think I've said all sort of what I think, but I'm ready to listen to you vent if you've got more to vent about.
No, I think for me the conclusion is I think both voting segments can do with a bit of change. I think you've mainly talked about the televote that needs a change. I agree with that. We do need to make sure that it's less easy to manipulate, because I feel like this year it was quite obvious that you can easily manipulate the televote, maybe even more so than the jury vote, because at least in the jury you might only have 5 people in that jury, but at least all they can do is give you a ranking, and that's final. You can't one person cannot give you 6 rankings. It doesn't work that way. You have 1 ranking per person, easy. So the televote definitely needs some change. I just genuinely think that the jury also needs a lot of change. I think a lot of the malcontent from past years comes from the differences between these juries, and maybe that's also something that they could think about. Why is that? Why do we have such a huge difference every year between the jury and the televote? Because this is not a one-off. It's not like this year was the first time that happened. We have it every year with certain countries where a country comes last with the juries or second to last with the juries and then comes top 2 or top 3 with the televote. It just doesn't make any sense. Like,
yeah, is it to do with what criteria are set by the EBU for these judges of what they're meant to judge on? I think there is a bit of a change this year in regards to, if I remember correctly, and sorry if I am getting this wrong, where it was more to do, there was a little bit more of, artistic direction and stuff like that, or, dedication to the vision or something like that. The performance was able to be more, because historically I think a lot of it has been vocal and musical and all the rest. And of course that makes a song, but that's not all a song is. It's not all a performance is. So I do think there should maybe be a bit more freedom on the jury to basically vote for what they enjoy the most as well. I don't think it necessarily needs to be like, you need to consider this, because that sort of maybe stifles free thinking. And also,
like how do you control it anyway? You might you can put criteria and say you have to look at this, you have to look at that. But at the end of the day, if I'm in that jury and I vote for my top, my top 25, how are they going to prove that I did that according to the criteria?
They're going to steal your Apple Music and they're going to check your most played of the week.
I feel like because even if you think about it, because there was a lot of talk a few years ago when the juries came back, like, oh, they're going to be looking at the vocal and they're going to be looking at how radio friendly a song is. I'm sorry. What was wrong
These
with
music execs don't know
Yeah.
what is radio
Yeah.
friendly.
What was wrong with Norway's vocals this year? There was nothing wrong with Norway's vocals. Her vocals were on point, probably one of the strongest of the night. So if that is a criteria, it should have come top 5 in the juries. They didn't. So what was the problem? What did they look at? Was it radio friendly? No, it's not radio friendly at all. So, but still, you would think that, okay, not radio friendly, but at least a good vocal. So you would have at least expected a few more points. I don't really know if there are criteria. Are they really well known? Do people know in the fandom what the criteria are for juries?
I think it's different every year, but I do think they have released them before, but I'm not sure. I can't say 100%. I'm so sorry, but no, I am aware that they do exist. The thing that I'm at is with this whole conversation in general is whatever happens, I just want to have fun and a good time and enjoy myself. I don't want to discredit anyone for doing well. I don't want to gloat about someone doing badly. No. I just want to have fun, enjoy myself. And I feel like at the end of the day, whatever system's in place, more people should be like this, be like that, where it just be like it's, at the end of the day, it's just a song contest. Do we love it? Yes. Is it going to change our lives? Sometimes yes, but mostly no. If it wasn't for the song contest, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be friends. But it's not really going to affect. One person getting 12 points instead of 8 points from a jury isn't going to change anything in your real life, to be honest.
But I think that's maybe easier to say for someone who Ooh. I mean, obviously, I know that you're not patriotic when it comes to the UK, but the UK has won. You guys did host Eurovision just last year. You guys have won a couple of times. I think if I look this year at Croatia, for example, Croatian fans who've been, Croatia's been in the contest for quite some time now, who was obviously the hot favorite, who wins the televote and then still doesn't manage to win. I try and see their point of view as well, where they're like, well, Switzerland only came 5th with the televote and then they still won. How does that happen? Do you know what I mean? Like that's like one of the main issues and one of the main reasons why people have this conversation. Same with Finland in last year, where Finland wins the televote massively and still only comes second, still doesn't win. I know what you mean when you say it's just a competition and we should just enjoy it no matter the outcome. And I think everyone does enjoy it no matter the outcome. But I do think that there are a lot of people who feel like, is this really fair when millions of people voted for one song and then we don't get that song as the winner because of the fact that juries buried it, or sometimes vice versa? That's sort of like, and I don't think that those people, I'm not saying, like, I'm a huge fan of Loreen, always have been. I'm happy that she won. I think she deserved the win. I love Nemo 100%.
Where's your hat?
I decided it's too hot to wear it. I'm 100% content with Nemo winning. Like, out of all the countries in the finals, like, this is the only deserved winner. But I do feel like when I see Croatian fans getting upset about coming so close and then winning the televote, but then still coming second because Switzerland got such a massive jury score, it's sort of that's the issue. That's sort of the thing that they have to figure out a way to change the voting system so that at least you don't get these massive differences. Because you can talk about voting being exciting, but were you really still excited about the voting when Loreen won the jury vote with 370 something or 360 something points? Did you really think that she was still going to lose it out to Finland? I did
I
not.
was still scared. I was still scared,
There
but I
was
was still.
there was over 150 or something points difference between her and Finland. I was like, even if he gets 400 points, he'd still not have enough. Like, that's what I'm talking about. That's the issue that I think they need to resolve. If the jury favorite wins with a margin of like 10 points or 20 points, I'm like, okay. But if you get a difference of 150 something points or more between,
There was only 50 odd points between Finland and Sweden.
I'm talking about the jury vote here.
All right, okay.
I'm talking about the jury vote. It's just when you see that difference, when you know that the televote favorite is already 150 or something points behind after the jury vote, it sort of already makes you think like, ugh, he's never going to get that many points more than Sweden to still win it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know I can see that you're disagreeing with me, but
it's not that I'm disagreeing. I just don't know how much of a big deal I find it.
But that's you.
Yeah,
your point of view, you know, and
I can understand your point of view. I just don't feel the same.
yeah, I don't know. I think for me,
well, no, I'm laughing.
I think for me that is that it's not like I personally. I would probably care more about it if it ever happened to Belgium. You know, if Musti had come second instead of Croatia and missed out because of a huge jury score for Switzerland, I would have been upset. I would have been like, "Fuck."
I can understand why
isn't
it's got
fair
for sure.
Do you see that? That's what I mean. Like, can you see why people think it's not fair?
See, so my thing is back to what I said sort of earlier is these are the rules that everyone signed up to.
True.
So
But are the
therefore,
rules fair? That's the issue.
well,
That's the conversation that we're having. We're not talking about do we know that these are the rules and do we accept them. The question was, are these rules fair? Do you honestly think that it's fair that a 5-headed jury has the same amount of power as thousands of people voting in a country? Do you think that that's fair?
No, but I worry about what would happen if you just got rid of juries altogether or whatever.
I'm not saying, but
I know you're not saying that.
Talk about getting rid of the juries. Neither. I don't think we should get rid of the juries. I will be the first to admit that Belgium has been saved by the juries a couple of times. If I'm talking about my own country, Gustav would not have come 7th last year. Talking about Gustav again, he would not have come 7th last year.
I'm just watching Billy behind you. I'm sorry.
He would not have come 7th this last year if it wasn't for the juries. I'm happy that they're there. I'm just saying, should we get more? That's my proposal. I think there should be more juries. There should be more people deciding the jury vote than just 5 people per jury. That just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't.
But then that's more people to pay. I don't know. I think there's more to be done around the public vote, as I've said, and the mathematics of how that works. But no, I can understand why it may seem unfair, for sure. I'm not unsympathetic to that. I just, as you said, I'm not a very patriotic person when it comes to Eurovision. So maybe for me, it's just not so much a thing.
Yeah, that's probably, I think, the main difference between you and a lot of other Euro fans is that you're not very patriotic, but a lot of people are, especially in maybe not so much in Western Europe, but I think in Eastern Europe, people are very patriotic. And you have to realize these are sometimes countries that have been competing since the 80s or the 90s that have never won Eurovision. You can sort of understand the urge that they have to sort of want to win it.
Oh yeah, everyone
you know what I mean?
So
when you do get close, I mean, and obviously Finland came, they won in 2006, which is not that long ago. But like, I'm thinking about Croatia, and I'm thinking, God, they've been at it for so long, and they came so close. Now they were actually the public's favorite, and then it slipped away for them. And again, this is me. I've got a fucking Nemo hat here right next to me on the table. I love Nemo, so I'm happy that they won. But I get where their frustration comes from. I get where Finland's frustrations come from last year, where you come so close. And if you come close at winning and you don't, but you know, you didn't win the televote, then that's fine. But when you win it so massively and then you still don't win it, that has to feel bad for fans, I think.
I get you.
That's my point of view. It's like, can we do anything? Can they do anything to at least, make sure that it's a little more fair?
Yeah. But I don't think there's a perfect solution, and that's the problem.
No.
I think whatever we say, there's going to be pitfalls to it, and I think we've discovered that during the course of the last sort of 30, 40 minutes discussing this. I would say, in the interest of balance, not only is Nemo going on tour across Europe, so is maybe Lasagna is going on tour across Europe. So get tickets to both. Support them both. Who cares what the jury vote says? Who cares what the televote says? Vote with your money. We've got none, so you might as well spend it for us instead of us. But no, I think at the end of the day, that is something that is important to do as well, is continue to support these artists as they do go out on these endeavors. It's not easy to be a small Croatian act and then suddenly be like, oh, I'm going to go and perform Glasgow, Liverpool, or wherever, and Antwerp. They're doing Belgium as well. So support them that way as well. I think that's crucially more important than any votes will ever be in terms of helping your favourites if they do tour where you are. We'll see them. Buy some merch. Scream your heart out. Don't you think that's more important?
I do. I'm just laughing at you. Buy some merch.
I mean, do as I say, do as I do. I'm not going to give out any advice that isn't exactly what I would do. It says he who bought a £50 sweatshirt at the Loreen pop-up store.
I did.
I did. Anyway, that's probably a good place to wrap up because we've been talking for another hour. We didn't say we said we were going to try not to do an hour, but we never can.
It's just such a big subject. You could go on forever.
Oh, maybe we just maybe this is just a pause and we come back and just start this conversation again next time. Keep checking out the website, niallpoints.com. You've also got Twitter and Instagram at niallpointsblog. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at niallpoints.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at paidatumerihuja.
And like, subscribe, rate 5 stars, leave a review.
Where do you rate 5 stars? On the podcast.
On the podcast, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that. This is how much I know about podcasts.
You can tell who does the tech side of the Niall Points Eurovision podcast. We've got some fancy new thumbnails you might have seen on YouTube as well. They look quite nice. We do. I redid them all because I got bored when I had COVID.
We have new thumbnails. Where on
the videos?
You? Oh, we do. Huh? How did I not?
You like them?
Oh, they're the same, aren't they?
No, but they're slightly different. Only slightly, but they're still.
Did you change all of them?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Because I'm like, they all look sort of. Oh, okay.
Anyway, we'll say goodbye.
I'm so bad with technology.
This is why I do it all and don't tell him, and he acts surprised. So, we'll leave it there, I guess. See you later. See you next time.
Bye.